Hello and welcome to Bowtie Life and the fifth installment to the Small Space Gardening series on our east-facing porch for a small tomato plant that we've been watching grow from seed. And this is our fifth installment, but it's been 4 weeks since we planted this seed. And I wanted to talk a little bit about where it is now and what's going on right now. In fact, let me just hold it up here where you can see a little bit. It doesn't look much bigger than the last time we looked at it. There's a couple little leaves. There's a new leaf coming in right there. We had talked about this cotyledon leaf underneath here. This one right here is one of the first leaves that came up with the seed. There were actually two. The other one has fallen off. This one will fall off. But it doesn't look like it's done very much. In fact, this one over here looks like it's done very little. I think we have a little extra growth coming off here. I'm not sure if this little one in here, and you can barely see it, not sure if this little one in here has actually not been eaten off by an insect or something, or a bird or whatever. But it's just been sitting out here on our outside porch. But let's talk about what's going on here. There's a lot of stuff going on under the ground right now, which is where the really important things are happening at this stage in this little guy's life. And he is sitting there trying to reach out for nutrients, which if you look back at some of the at the very early episode of this, we do have some basic nutrients in here for him to find. And he's not growing. Thought I saw a root there for a second. He's not growing anything out the bottom. He's not that developed yet. This is a pretty big cup for a little seedling like this. In fact, a seedling like this could be planted in a very small seedling tray, but just because we're doing one, I only did it just in a solo cup, simply because trying to do this in a way that anybody can do it with what you've got laying around the house, and with very little investment in going and finding all the supplies you need and everything else. We are going to talk about one thing today, which is a possible supply. It's certainly not a requirement. The stuff we put in here, we put in a little Dr. Earth's organic, it's an organic fertilizer I personally get from Lowe's. It comes in a pretty big bag. I have a lot more plants, but I was giving this a little bit of nutrients to start with its leaves and roots, which is really all it's interested in doing right now, is leaves and roots. In fact, it is not even ready for fruit right now. It's just trying to get to the point where it can start gathering the sun. And in fact, you can see there's sun right here. The place where we've got it here, it's east facing. We actually have some trees up here. In fact, you can see here the view of this tree limb just right up here. We get a few hours of sun every single morning, direct sunlight, and morning sun is really good. So an east facing porch is like, if you've got an east facing porch patio on an apartment or a condo or whatever you own, rent, whatever, you've got like this perfect location to get started with something like this. And so it's just finished. In fact, if you look down here, you can see there's still a little bit of sunlight here. There's advantage we're going to talk about in later episodes, about advantage to having some direct sunlight on your seedlings like this. But anyway, so it's really just kind of reaching out, feeling the sun, getting its leaves kind of going where it's focusing more on the roots. And right now, and I bring up this cotyledon leaf earlier because after that cotyledon leaf, we have our true leaves coming out. Now these true leaves, in fact, let's get a little closer and take a look at this. Hi, I'm Bowtie Dave. So these true leaves right here, we can see are coming along actually very good. Now this one here has a little bit of browning on it, and that's not unusual. It's not something I'd like to see on a seedling this small, but frankly, with it living outdoors the way it is, you're going to have stuff like this happen. Interestingly enough, I have a friend who lives on the 22nd floor of a condo, and his never looked like this at this point. But you'll notice, if you look carefully back here, you see the little gnats. There's some little insects and gnats back here. Those little gnats sometimes suck a little bit of water out of the leaves. There's a lot of reasons it could happen, but frankly, it's not unusual. The key thing is, you'll notice there's a new leaf here, a new leaf here. There's also down here in the middle, there's even another new leaf getting ready to pop out. So this thing is really growing. It's really strong. It's looking good. And because of these leaves right now, we know that it's ready to start shooting up some leaves. It's got just enough roots now that it can start supporting some leaves. And that's an exciting point, because this is the point at which the growth can turn. Now this does take a lot of patience, and you got to be prepared. This is 4 weeks this thing's been growing, and you got to be prepared to take a little time, watch this thing grow. Now this is in a place I walk by this every single day, sometimes several times a day, and with my ADD brain, I have to be reminded to water this thing. And so and I'll be honest, I am not the most consistent about watering. I am quite terrible, in fact, about it. So what I'll do, we talked in the last episode about bottom watering. I'll put about that much water in here when I'm walking out, and one day I might be gone for an hour, and I'll come back and then I'll just empty it, because this thing, and you can see this has got plenty of moisture in it, but it will have soaked up enough moisture. Those roots are reaching down in that soil to get to that water, which is really good for the plant. I let it soak an hour or so in about that much water, and it'll soak up, and it just is enough water. I'll just dump that out. Now the thing, we're in Destin, Florida, which is nice because we're gonna have 80-degree temperatures some days all the way through certainly September and most likely into October. So we're in a good place here. We've got a long time to grow this. We'll be transplanting this. This cup is not big enough for a tomato plant, but it's where we need to start. And if you remember one of the early episodes, we talked about the reason we start in a smaller container is so that we don't have to pour a whole gallon of water in here every single day, maybe even twice a day, to get this thing to grow. So anyway, just a little bit of water in here. I actually keep a solo cup here with water in it. Occasionally I will see mosquito larvae swimming around inside here. I don't see any right now, so I have to empty this and get some new water and all, but just things to kind of keep an eye out on. But yeah, this is actually looking really good. So we're going to look at the next little thing that I'm going to do here. Now this next step, it is not required. We do have some feed in here, but I want to encourage this thing to grow a little bit more on the greenery now, because we know it's got enough roots to start supporting some decent greenery. In fact, just from the last time, this thing has grown, I know this leaf, I think it's grown this leaf. Maybe this leaf is one of the original ones too. But anyway, we know it's growing. This thing is a nice big leaf collecting solar energy. It's got another one in there. It's telling us, hey, I got roots now. I'm ready to start growing some leaves. So I'm going to give this thing a little optional boost right now. And I want to introduce you to one little fertilizer that I use here. Now this is Alaska fish fertilizer, and you can get it pretty much anywhere. Our local Ace Hardware sells it. You can get it at Lowe's. You can get it at Home Depot. It's a pretty common fertilizer. And you'll notice those numbers down there in the bottom, the 511. That 511 is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Now those are our three main nutrients that plants need. And the nitrogen, that first number, you'll notice it's a lot bigger than the other two. It's 5 times bigger, and it is the thing that really helps plants grow green leaves. And we'll talk about the 3 nutrients here a little bit more in a future episode, but those green leaves are very important for getting this little tiny plant going, get this little tiny plant up and starting strong, because the more solar panels we can get growing on this thing, the better it's going to grow. Now I'm going to warn you, this stuff smells. okay? It says fish fertilizer. Doesn't mean it's what you fertilize fish with. This is ground up fish. It's fermented. It's pretty nasty. And so this is not something you're going to want to use indoors very often, though I will use it indoors on a very just low concentration on plants. And we're going to use a very, very low concentration. Now this stuff is like sludge. Okay, think about it. Ground up fish. Now, why fish? The level of nitrogen that this provides is so high, and it's also organic. There's an OMRI listed symbol down here, which means it's an organic option for fertilizing your plants, which I personally do like the organic method. If you choose to go with non-organic chemicals, then do that. It's something for you to experiment with and try with, because you'll have to just come up with your own conclusions in your own life. In my life, I've done a lot of organic changes in my life, and I've improved my health significantly from going with organic things. But I've improved my health, and I believe I've improved the health of the things around me. So anyway, this fish fertilizer, and again, I know I'm harping on this. It's kind of slushy, and we don't need much of it. Now, this is a huge bottle. Remember, I have other plants that I feed out here. I actually thought I saved my quart bottle. I know it comes in a quart. I think it comes in a smaller package, but you just have to look at your store and see what's available. But if I open this, and I would not go sticking your nose down in there either, because that stuff is nasty. Nasty, nasty. And so now remember, we have our only tool that we're using so far, and I have my little teaspoon here, and I am going to put about a teaspoon into this cup of water that I have, and I like mixing it in with, and you can see how sludgy that is. Okay, so I put a teaspoon in there. Now that was a generous teaspoon, and I probably didn't need that much, but you can see what it looks like. It looks like dirty water now, but I'm going to be giving this some of the best nitrogen fertilizer that it can get. Now, I'm only going to be putting part of this in here. I left this thing full of water last night. It's a Saturday morning. Last night, I filled this thing with the little 1/2 inch of water that I was talking about, and it sat overnight. So it's actually pretty moist in that soil. However, remember, there is a drain hole in the bottom, so it's going to drain out any extra, which is okay. But when I pour this, now, another thing, you'll remember when I first poured this in, the soil shifted around. Well, the soil's been in here a month now. It's kind of set now. It's starting to get roots in it, so the roots are kind of holding it in. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to just pour just enough in here that I can flood the surface, and I'll know that this nitrogen fertilizer is going to soak in and through. In fact, if I wait just a second, you'll see it'll drip out. There we go. So I know there is plenty in there. That whole thing got saturated. No, I poured about a third of what I had in here into that cup, and it's going to sit in a little bit in the bottom, and I'm going to leave this here like that probably for the rest of the day. I might think about it tonight. If I don't think about it till tomorrow morning, it's okay. You're not sitting in a lot of liquid down here, and here's the thing, one of the big reasons why I chose a solo cup, it's actually deep enough to where the water will drain out far enough that it won't just completely flood the roots and drown the roots. But there's enough there that it's going to still soak up into the soil, which is what we want. We want that bottom watering. I did top watering with this just to kind of make it come down through the top and make sure that it gets all the way through the soil. And it's not perfect. I mean, it goes through, part of it soaks in and part of it doesn't soak in. And I'll do this again on my next round. But again, I'm outdoors. I haven't smelled it yet, and I have a pretty good smeller. Yeah, I smell that. It smells a little bit. We do have a very, very slight breeze. Our our little windmill is actually turning right now, coming from that direction. So I'm having a very good breeze coming across here, which is nice. If we didn't have a breeze, it would probably be something different. So anyway, that's the 5th installment of our small space gardening, and I'm really feeling good about doing this series, because some of us don't have gardens to do this. For 4 years, we only had an apartment with a small patio that I used to call my garden, and only the last 2 of those 4 years did I have a lot of plants out. And so you can maximize the space you have and play around with it, and start growing things and get more and more. But I like what Jess Sauer says when she talks about turn your waiting room into a classroom, and that's really what our apartment was. I turned it into a classroom because I started growing then and figuring out how to feed things and how to fertilize and how to get them to grow and how to get them to grow from seed. And so anyway, that is episode number 5 in this particular series. We are going to be doing more series. I have places on the west side of the house, on the north side of the house. We'll be doing other series in this series in the future, and please subscribe so you don't miss any if you haven't already. We put out new videos, not quite every day, but most days, and we try to get content in here, both garden tours of the garden and the progress in the gardens, and also informational stuff like this, to where depending on where my people that view my videos might learn something, might be inspired to do something. I watch a lot of YouTube myself. In fact, in the mornings I hit the play all button on my Roku, and I sit there and let things play. And it's so funny because so often I'm sitting there, something's playing in the background, and I'm brushing my teeth or eating my breakfast or whatever I'm doing, and they talk about I'm paying attention to my weeds today, and I remember, my ginger patch got a lot of weeds in there, I gotta go pull out. And so I go and pause the TV, I go out, pull the number of weeds for 5 minutes, and then I come back in and continue with my morning routine. That's just kind of how it goes. With a ADD brain, I'm very distracted sometimes, I know, but it's something I've learned to live with, and I'm learning to use, because I consider my ADD not to be a problem to be struggled with, but a gift from God that He created me with. So be sure to subscribe if you already have subscribed. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for watching. That helps grow the community. We have a lot of people that watch that haven't subscribed yet, and I'd love to see more subscriptions on this channel. If you thought this was informational, educational, inspirational, or maybe just entertaining to see me out here throwing dead fish on a plant, nasty. Yeah, it is nasty, but the plants love it. And we're going to start seeing some growth on this here in the next couple weeks. But please click the thumbs up if you thought it was any of those things I just listed: inspirational, educational, informational, or just entertaining. And share with this video on your social media. All these things, they're free things you can do. They don't cost a dime, just a couple of clicks, and you can help grow the community, and help maybe even to inspire a friend who is a small space gardener or who wants to be a small space gardener. It's amazing because we look around our lives and we know 2 types of people. We know people that are going to just complain where they're at, or they're going to make things happen. And I've always been the person to make things happen and get things going and figure things out so that I can get to the next step and get to the next step. And it's just so very important to be able to do that, I think. But anyway, all that being said, keep an eye out for our next episode of this and more. We did just finish our August 2023 garden tours. This was a very discouraging month. It normally is this time of year. It's been hot. Things are dying in the garden. I'm planting new things. They're not really looking that great yet, but we're still trying. We're still going. And the biggest thing, like I said earlier, is patience in the garden and figuring out, okay, this thing is doing its thing. I'm gonna live with that, and I'm gonna just go on with my day and live my day and see where I'm at tomorrow. Because since we fed this thing the nitrogen fertilizer, it's going to start shooting up here. In fact, I'm going to try to do a short as episode number 6 here in a few days, where you can see this thing just taking off, because I think it really will. But anyway, all that being said, coming down to the end here, I appreciate everyone who's watching the videos, and please subscribe, and hey, have a blessed day.